for it had not been specified what should be done to him. So maybe I'm reading more into that, but it sounds like there wasn't a specific prohibition verbalized about gathering wood.
Well, it's a day of rest.
Well, so you hit the nail on the head. What prohibition did he violate? Right? This is what strikes us as unfair here. Where is the Torah? Does it say that you cannot gather wood? We have a principle in criminal law, it's a foundation of all democracies, the rule of law. It's called in Latin, nollam crimen sine lege, or lige. No crime without the law, which is the principle that a person should not face criminal punishment except for an act that was criminalized by a law before he did the act.
Yeah, sounds like it's an ex post
Right. So let's look at what does the Torah say about the Sabbath. What actual prohibitions? Because we know that it's in the Ten Commandments, it's in the Decalogue, right? And in the Decalogue, in the Shelach Hadibot, what does it say? You must refrain from labor, or lo ta'aseh kol melacha. But that's very general, right? That's there. We run into a problem called the Vagueness Theory. Criminal laws or any laws cannot be vague. You can't punish on something that's so vague as lo ta'aseh kol melacha. So let's comb the Torah to see what specific labors have been prohibited. So we have cooking. Here's our first one. In the story of the manna, the Torah says, Shabbaton, Shabbat Kodesh, L'Adonai, Machar. Et asher tofu, efu, v'et asher tevashlu bashelu. Tomorrow is the day of Sabbath. Bake what you would bake and boil what you would boil today so that you don't do it tomorrow. So there it's implied, at least. It's not specifically says don't bake and don't cook on Shabbat, but it is implied that those two things you should do before so that you can avoid doing them on the seventh day. Okay, so we have cooking. Then we have definitely plowing and harvesting. A verse in Parashat Mishpatim says, "Becharish uvakatzir tishbot." On the seventh day you shall rest. In plowing and in harvest you shall rest. And the third one is very familiar: kindling fire. Lo tevaru esh bechol moshvotechem b'yom haShabbat. It's at the beginning of Parashat Vayakel. You shall not kindle fire throughout your settlements on the Sabbath day. But what he did doesn't fit into any of these. He didn't cook, he didn't do any plowing and harvesting, he didn't do any kindling of fire. So we're back with Bill's question. This seems to violate the most fundamental principle of the rule of law. So one modern-day commentator, Baruch Levine, attempted to explain that the gathering wood was an act preparatory to starting a fire. Right? And starting a fire, we know that's prohibited, but that's also very schwer, very, like you say in Yiddish. You're going to punish him for what he prepared to do, but not what he did. Again, it's very specific. The Torah says that he was caught gathering wood, right? It doesn't say anything about lighting a fire, starting to light a fire, or preparing to light a fire. So that really is not a sufficient explanation. It doesn't solve really anything. Okay. So,
can I interrupt you for a second?
yes.
Rabbi Susan sent a chat message to include him as a co-host, so he could record it.
Oh no, I did, but then it got resolved because I see that it's already being recorded. But thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Robert. So now I want to go to the rabbinic formulation of the Melakot. So as we saw, except for those three things in the Torah, the cooking, the plowing, harvest, the general term is melacha, and in the oral tradition, they put a shape and form on that word by articulating 39 avot melachot. The best translation, I think, is primary labor, primary types of labor. So, and this is the Mishnah in Masechet Shabbat, chapter 7. And the Mishnah begins with Avot Melachot 40 Chaser Achat. So the primary categories of prohibited labor are 39, and then it lists them: Hazorea, v'hachoresh, v'hakotzer, v'hame'amer, sowing and plowing and harvesting, binding sheaves, threshing, winnowing. And we can divide them into groups, as you see here on the screen. I'm not going to read through all of them. Let's get to the last few. Writing 2 letters, erasing 2 letters, building, pulling down, extinguishing, kindling, striking with a hammer, and finally taking out or carrying from one domain to another. What's missing here?
Right.
Gathering wood.
Gathering wood, right. That's not in this list. So isn't that interesting that the only example in the Torah of someone who violated the Sabbath is omitted from the list of the 39 primary types of category? You would think that would be the first one. Okay, maybe the third or fourth after the kindling and the ones that were actually specified as prohibitions. Here it's somebody who actually did it, got caught, got punished. So that already should light a red light in our minds of why it seems like they omitted the one type of labor that the Torah told us was not only prohibited, but someone was executed for it. So there's a very interesting discussion in the Talmud about what did he violate? What did he violate? The Talmudic rabbis now are going to argue among themselves and try to find, out of those 39, something that's closest to gathering wood. So let's look at that discussion because it's fascinating.
Shamai,
Something
Yes.
from one domain to the other.
Yes?
Shamai, I think what's fascinating is that in the middle of the desert, he found wood.
Oh. Yeah, so maybe they were near an oasis, or maybe it's wood that they, it's not clear what was the purpose of it and where did he find it, but they found him, and then they felt something was wrong, so they brought him to Moses, but it's not clear what was wrong exactly. So look at this discussion. It's collected from different parts of the Talmud. In the Jerusalem Talmud, it's the first paragraph. Rabbi Chia bar Gama asked, what did the wood gatherer violate? Was it detaching, tolesh, or was it reaping, kotzer? Let us learn from this quote. When the Israelites were in the deserts, they came upon a man gathering wood. This teaches us they found him detaching wood from the ground. So this rabbi thinks it's kotzer. So if we go back up, let's put it in yellow here. Or where's my yellow marker here? Okay, so this melacha, this kotzer. Then another rabbi says, no, you're wrong. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Samuel, the Mekoshesh carried the wood 4 cubits in a public domain. So he goes to the last one, number 39. So you see number 39, he took it out from one domain to another. Again, it's not there in the Torah. It doesn't say that he carried it from one domain. It just said he was gathering wood. So, but that's his opinion. Then the third paragraph, a Tanaitic source taught he chopped the wood off the tree. So chopping, okay, that would be the kotzer. And then finally, Rav Acha, son of Rabbi Jacob, said he bound them together. This is the Babylonian Talmud. So binding, we had binding sheaves. That was over here, number 4, if you see, binding sheaves. In the Mishnah, that was the number 4. So if we summarize it in a table, we'll get the following table. That there's 4 possibilities between the 2 Talmuds. We had carrying, ma'avil, detaching, tolesh, reaping, kotzel, and binding, me'amel. But what strikes me is that I think there's a hidden message here. I think that we're barking up the wrong tree and we're not really reading in between the lines. Because as I mentioned, it would have been so much more straightforward when they formulated the 39 to make that one of them, to make the Mekoshesh, gathering wood, one of them. So perhaps what they're saying to us is that really this whole story, this whole execution of someone for something that wasn't clearly prohibited was wrong, and they don't want to give it a hechsher. And so this is actually the rabbi's way, in a kind of ironic way, ironic discussion. They're saying, let's do all these legal somersaults to try to connect his actions. What we're really trying to tell you is that it was unfair. It was simply unfair. He should not have been executed. The rabbis don't, their way of criticizing, of doing what I call subtle criticism, they'll never say God is wrong. They'll never say capital punishment is wrong, because it's full, the Torah is full of it. But they do it in very subtle ways. So by omitting the Mekoshesh from the list and then going into this like legal somersaults, which everybody can see, it's kind of irony, like, oh, I think it's closest to this. Oh, I think what he did is closest to this malacha. That's not how you rule in a court of law. You can't say this is close, so I'm going to execute you. This is close to what the penal code said, right? So I think they were very sensitive to that, and this is their way, in a sort of an undercurrent in between the lines, to voice their objection to the whole idea of that someone was executed for something that wasn't prohibited, and perhaps even to the whole idea of capital punishment. Because it doesn't strike me logical that they forgot this passage. They knew about the Mikoshesh, right? They didn't forget about it. But this is not a lacuna, what we call in law, that the legislator forgot to address a certain situation. This is an omission. They omitted, and I think they're trying to tell us, we view capital punishment as immoral, and so we're going to turn this into a travesty by having this discussion of what he did, which is totally unconvincing, and we know it's unconvincing because we want you to think about the immorality of the whole situation. Now, this is not the first time they did it. I want to bring two other examples, because you might be thinking, wait, this sounds a little bit too progressive for them, but no. We have two other examples where Chazal took specific passages, very literal passages, and turned them into something totally theoretical because of their moral objection. The first one is, I put it on the screen, Ben Sorer Umoreh, killing the rebellious child. In Deuteronomy 21, it's a famous passage. He doesn't listen to his parents. He's a glutton. There's all kinds of interpretations of what he actually did. Then they took him to the elders and they stoned him to death. What does the Talmud say? At least the majority opinion. I wrote it in Hebrew. Ela lo haya velo atid liot. This case never happened, never will happen. So imagine, they're very bold. They're saying a Torah passage is something totally theoretical because we object to it. It sounds so immoral to us. Then not only it never happened, but never will happen. So it's a totally theoretical scenario. The second time they do that is Ir Hanidachat. In Deuteronomy chapter 13, the Torah says if you find a city whose majority of citizens become idolaters, you have to obliterate the entire city, kill the entire population, men, women, children, and burn it down and never to be rebuilt. Also, it sounds very, very cruel and unjust, and how can you even be sure that everybody did it, and why are the children? And so what does the Talmud say? Lo hayta velo atida liyot. This city, this kind of Ir Hanidachat, never happened and never will happen. So I think another example to these two examples is what they did here in their discussion of the Mekoshesh. They, in a very subtle way, were saying what we started with, that there's a basic principle that we usually attribute it to 18th century liberalism. Some scholars go back to Roman law, but maybe even here the sages are trying to tell us, Nola crimen sine lege. You can't punish if you don't explicitly prohibit it and also tell people what the punishment is. So this is also struck me as very relevant because of a movie that we recently saw in our movie night, our family movie night. And the movie is called Unjust Mercy. It's about somebody who was wrongfully convicted is about to be executed. And I like to share videos, so it's a 2-minute video. I want to whet your appetite, and I think it's very highly recommended because it addresses these problems of capital punishment and wrongful convictions, and the issues that we are dealing with in this passage. And so I will share with you just the trailer, and then hopefully you can get it in one of the streaming devices, or find it somewhere on the web and see it. Okay, so Neve, how do I get to the?
It says you're supposed to rest
It's not that.
on the Sabbath. On the 10th
Okay,
commandment.
there we go.
Carrying wood is not rest.
Share again.
You were already sharing.
Here we go.
Tell me everything that happened. The first time I visited death row, I wasn't expecting to meet somebody the same age as me. From a neighborhood just like ours. Could have been me, Mama.
But what you're doing is gonna make a lot of people upset.
But you always taught me to fight for the people who need the help most. Your life is still meaningful, and I'm gonna do everything possible to keep them from taking it. You don't know what you're into down here in Alabama? When you're guilty.
God.
Mr. McMillan.
We done here.
Mr. McMillan, please.
I was just about to give up when I got a call from a Harvard lawyer looking to start a legal center for inmates on death row. I was in before he even offered me the job.
You the lawyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for driving all the way out here. Most lawyers barely make time to call.
I can't believe you talked to all my people and said you're gonna fight for me. I did.
It mean a lot. If you go digging in those wounds, you're gonna be making a lot of people very unhappy.
When people care about a thing that much, they'll do anything to get what they want.
When I first learned about all this, it was like looking at a river full of drowning people and not having any way of helping them.
You ain't quitting, is you? No, sir. Each of us is more than the worst thing that we've ever done. I know what it's like to be in the shadows.
It's my dad. He do nothing wrong.
It's never too late for justice.
You're the only one kid enough to fight for me.
If we can look at ourselves closely, we can change this world for the better. We all need grace. We all need mercy. I got my truth back. You gave it to me.
Unjust Mercy.
Ain't nobody gonna take that from us.
Name of the movie.